Well, hello, it is Dr. Wayne coming at you with your Sunday morning Power Bible Study. How's everybody doing today? We've got another good one today. The series, the motif that we've been trekking is specifically in these readings during October, have focused on the relationship between Moses and God. And I wrote something in the newsletter about that. Relationships are, well, by their very nature, personal, right? And we don't all have the kind of relationship that Moses had with God. We can't see it as paradigmatic for us. There are many things that we can learn about Moses' relationship with God that will help us to further understand where we need to alter our way of being. But he had such a unique, God spoke to him, right? When's the last time you heard the voice of God, right? Audibly. So I think it is safe to say that these encounters, we've seen a lot of encounters, right? It's safe to say these encounters are very personal stories, and they're intended to, and that's the way it is even with with God and Abraham. The whole idea of God speaking to somebody audibly. I think that the Bible casts as narrative what might not necessarily be like if somebody were observing and seeing what's going on, I don't think they would necessarily hear or see what we're reading and understanding. Does that make sense? I think that Moses' relationship with God was so intense that he had experiences of God that aren't paradigmatic for us. So we're in Exodus chapter 33, and if you recall last week, what were we doing? The golden calf. Remember that? And what was the result of the golden calf thing? God's angry, right? This was, and that's one of the things, I think it's best to understand it as, this is Moses' understanding of God. And then God wants to wipe him out. And Moses talks God off the ledge. And where we join in today, that was in chapter 32. Where we join in today in chapter 33, the covenant has still not been restored. We are still in that weird time after the apostasy of the golden calf incident and the restitution and the, let's move on from here type thing. That hasn't happened yet. So we are in that pregnant time of that in-between time. So, after the golden calf and Moses talks God off the ledge, a few things happen, right? First of all, Moses went and got 2 more tablets. By the way, the two tablets, why 2 tablets? Oh, we always think, I'm always reminded of that scene from Mel Brooks's History of the World Part 1, where Moses is coming down from the mountain, he's carrying 3 tablets, and he says, Israel, I bring you the he's about to say 15, drops one of the tablets. 10 commandments from God. Yeah. So we always presume, oh, well, there's 5 on each one. You know what? I don't think so. You know that little thing that we have? We don't use it anymore. It's called duplicates, Xerox, carbon copy. Yeah, 1 copy for me, 1 copy for you, because it's like a contract. That's why there's 2 copies. That's why there's 2 tablets. It's not because there's 10 commandments and there's 5 on each. Anyway, I just had to get that in there. So, just before our passage today, in chapter 33, verses 7 to 11, we have a pleasant little telling of how it was that Moses would meet with God. And there's this, the narrator is very keen on making sure that we are aware that he's getting face-to-face with God. Now, a lot of anthropomorphic imagery is used for God. What's anthropomorphic imagery? Anthropomorphic imagery is using human characteristics to describe a deity. And we're going to see that big time today. All right, verse 12. Exodus 33, verse 12. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you have said to me, bring up this people." Moses is going to throw a whole lot of what God said back in his face here. Watch this. "But you have not let me know whom you will send with me." What is he saying? He's saying the idea is, okay, you've told me what to do, but you really haven't given me anything on how to do it. That's what he's talking about here. "Yet you have said," it goes on, and he's quoting God again, "I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight." That's like, yeah, God, you've said that you know me by name, and I've found favor in your sight. Now, verse 13. "Now, if I have found favor in your sight," have you ever been this way with God? God, really? This is where things are going? Really? I can confess that I've had these kinds of thoughts. At least I did back when I left the ministry, the Baptist ministry, many moons ago, back in the 90s. Yet you say, now, if I have found favor in your sight, verse 13, "Show me your ways. Give me the plan. Give me the whole plan. I don't want to go by this, let's just wing it. Let's just rely on the Spirit." He's like, I want to see a plan so that I may know you and find favor in your sight. So God has already said, I have found favor, that you found, that he's found favor with Moses. But what Moses is like saying, well, this favor that you're showing me, I'm not so sure that's working out for me. Okay? He said, okay, I'm in the middle of 13, "that I may know you and find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people." I think it's hilarious. It's like he's got to remind, he did the same, Moses played that same card back in chapter 32. He had to remind God, after God said, "These people who you brought out," and Moses has to say, wait a second, no, these are your people that you brought out. The relationship Moses has with God is one where they can be a little snarky with each other. And I think I'm getting to the take-home point of all this right now, which is, it's okay to be snarky with God. It really is. The closer the relationship you have, how you have a relationship relationships with people on this terrestrial plane, right? And you have you feel like you've earned a right because you are on good terms to get down and dirty and honest with somebody. This is the way Moses was with God. He said, my presence, okay, verse 14. He said, my presence, this is God speaking, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Now, I don't know why the narrator doesn't say that God is speaking here, because typically when there's a change in that, the change in the narrator, you have that, but not here. But this is definitely something that wouldn't make sense if it were coming out of Moses' mouth, right? My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. So Moses is saying, give me a plan. Who's going to go with me? And God is saying, I myself will go with you. That's quite a promise if you think about it. Remember, Moses had already been given, when he was up on the mountain, not just the 10 commandments and all the other commandments and so. He was given a whole template for constructing the tabernacle, which was that worship area that they would build during the end of Exodus. But that was to make it safe for the people, for God to be with them. Yeah. One of the things that we learned early on was that the Lord said, I'm not so sure it's good for me. I'm not so sure it's good for you, for me to be with you. And so the Lord actually uses the tabernacle as a way of creating an intentionality in the people so that it would be safe for them for the presence of the Lord. It's for their safety. Verse 15. And he said to him, and this is Moses talking to the Lord, and he said to him, if your presence will not go, do not carry us up from here. Yeah, he's like, okay, I hear you. You said you're going to go with me and you're going to give you rest. That means that your mind, your troubled mind is going to be unburdened. Moses saying, okay, well, because if your presence doesn't go with us, you know what? Don't even bother taking us from this spot. That's how serious I am about this. Do not carry us up from here. Verse 16, for how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people, unless you go with us? So he's like, it's kind of like that singing frog. Remember that cartoon? Remember that cartoon of the singing frog where there's a guy in a bar, I think, sees a frog that when nobody else is looking, he has a top hat on and a cane, and he's dancing, singing it. Hello, my baby. Hello, my nano. Hello, my ragtime gal. Da 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 da. Yeah, the singing frog. But anytime somebody else is around, what does he get from the frog? Ribbit, ribbit. Yeah. So Moses is saying to God, I don't want to be like that guy. I know I'm taking this out of order. Moses, the frog thing came later. But that's the kind of thing that he's saying. It's like, I don't want this just to be a joke on me. The people need to know that you're with me. This is very important. I won't feel validation before the people if I don't get this from you, Lord. Okay, so starting again, verse 16, Exodus 33, verse 16. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people, unless you go with us? In this way, we shall be distinct, I and your people, from every people on the face of the earth. Moses is really selling this to us, like, we need this. If we're really going to be the people that you say that we're going to be, it can't be any other way. Moses is really going to bat here, and I hope that that's something that we learn for ourselves from this encounter, that we can be that way with God as well. It helps us get clarity. It helps us to feel as though we've let it all out there. Nothing's held back. And it liberates us then to totally be open to the will of God. This is the way I see this. Okay, verses 17 and following. We're just going to the end of the chapter, which is verse 23. Exodus 33, verse 17. The Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing that you have asked, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. How many times have we heard this already? It's like this is like the Lord signing on the dotted line, if you will. And you repeat all of that other stuff. Moses in verse 18 now, he's going to make, so the Lord has signed on the dotted line, right? Notary public right there. And it's like, okay, this is the deal. Moses makes a very bold request. Look at this. Moses said, show me your glory, I pray. Show me your glory, I pray. You see, Moses knows that he's talking to a God who is not corporeal. But even if God didn't have a body like we have a body, there's still a radiance, a glory. The word is Shekinah. Shekinah. It's a feminine word, which is interesting. Some people suggest that maybe even the Shekinah glory of God is a predecessor of Lady Wisdom, an early way of expressing what the Christian church calls the Holy Spirit, which obviously isn't something that can be seen, but can be experienced, remember, with the wind and all of that. So many people feel like this thing about God's glory, his Shekinah, is that. It's just as good as seeing God, which you can't see God, but you can see, like, you could only be impressed. That's what we mean by show me your glory. Whatever it is that I can see of you, show me. Very bold, huh? Verse 19. And he said, this is the Lord speaking, and he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the name the Lord. So when he says that he's going to his goodness, goodness is a euphemism for the being of God, the nature of God, the essence of God, the nature of God. We don't have that word Shekinah again, but the fact that we have this other word, goodness. Remember Jesus, when he is being quizzed by a lawyer, he says, Jesus says, no one is good but God alone. There's this idea of like the good is the good is God. Okay, so the word goodness here is a euphemism for the presence of God. Okay, the presence of God, and so so this is what God tells him. Verse 19. Okay, I will make my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the name, the Lord. Right there in that thing, that is one of the few times, or one of the first times we have God actually use the tetragrammaton in reference to God's self. What is the tetragrammaton? The tetragrammaton are those 4 Hebrew consonants that when we vocalize them, we don't know how it was vocalized. The Hebrew consonants, they were like Y, H, W, H, right? That was, they would never say it. The name of God was considered to be so holy that they refused to say it out loud. And so when they did come to that word in their scripture, they would say, instead, they would say Adonai. Adonai means Lord. So when we see this in all caps, this is the translator's way of saying that, oh, we've got the YHWH here, the tetragrammaton. Ugh. Yod, He, Vav, He. Those are the Hebrew letters. Translates to YHWH. Okay. All right. I, the Lord, and I will be gracious. This is the end of verse 19. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. This is like a common, not unusual, and will be repeated many times thing. That this is the idea is the autonomy of the Lord. The emphasis isn't on like, I can do anything I want, I'm God. No, it's a way of saying the autonomosity of God is very, is a way for God to identify God's self. Why is this important? Because the other gods of that time, in that day and age, they weren't necessarily autonomous. They could be manipulated. They could be false. The names of the other gods were open to misuse. Hence, we have that commandment, right? Okay. So, so this is an expression of that. In the end of verse 19, I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious. I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But, he said, verse 20, you cannot see my face. Now, for no one shall see me and live. Now, does God have a face? No. But does Moses remember, I think that what we're getting here is a very personal experience from the life of Moses. And for Moses, maybe God did have a face. Maybe he had a secret desire to see God's face. You can't always take individual encounters with God as paradigmatic for writing your systematic theology. They're just not always that profitable. But they do give us insight into where Moses was in his relationship with God. And it gives us an idea of like, oh, do I have an idea of what the face of God looks like? Have you ever prayed this prayer to ask God to ask to see his face in other people? Yeah, so this is a part of our experience, our personal experience of God, with God. For no one shall see me and live. The idea of seeing God isn't so much like, oh, your head's going to explode, or you're going to have those demons like that came out of the Ark of the Covenant in that Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. The idea is that there is a strict and definite line between earthly being and heavenly being. And to see God's face would be to be that thing of like two worlds colliding that cannot happen. So it's kind of like, I remember that episode remember Seinfeld, and George Costanza had a thing once where he was had two different worlds going on. I can't remember, it was dating two different women or something, but there was something that his worlds couldn't collide. And I don't know if it might have been his parents and somebody he was dating. I can't remember, but the idea is as long as they're separate, everything's okay. But if those things come together, death. Oh, here's another illustration. A black hole. Black hole. Does anything, a black hole is something that's got so much gravity that sucks everything in, even light. That's why it's black. And nothing survives on the other side. This is my understanding of it anyway. Maybe I'm all washed up, but let's continue. For no one shall see me in the verse 21. We're in Exodus 33, verse 21. And the Lord continued, see, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock. So he's referring to the physical place where they're having this tete-a-tete. Verse 22. And while my glory passes by, the Shekinah, we talked about that, I will put you on a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. The idea here is that the Lord is trying to give Moses a taste of what he wants, but he can't give him the full everything. Then I will take away my hand, verse 23, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. Okay. Anthropomorphic language is when we give God human qualities, and we talk about God as having a face and hands and all of that. That's what's going on here. Like I told you at the very beginning of the study, I don't believe that there is a physical encounter with God in God's self. But is it possible for you, me, us? It was possible for Moses to have such an intense relationship with God that you're like, I was in God's presence and I could feel the radiance I had. There's a solid experience of reality that I'm not making this up. But yet, it didn't actually see God's face. There's no line crossed. But this is an intense personal relationship. One of the things that is being highlighted in these episodes in Exodus is the nature of personal relationship. That was my thing, the October newsletter article. Look it up on the website if you haven't read it. But it's about when each one of us has a different relationship with God. Moses had his. Abraham had his. Oh, by the way, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and we talk about with Abraham, and you remember of the whole Isaac incident, and the idea that God had asked him to sacrifice Isaac. Is it possible that that narration was also something that was an intense experience of Abraham because of his personal relationship with God? and that that's the reason why it's not all that profitable to do systematic theology with these things. Because when God interacts with people, we're getting the people's experience for the most part. I think that's valuable. I hope you find it valuable. This is what we have available through Jesus. This is why we're happy that Jesus did what he did, and we are all able to have this personal relationship with God. And thanks be to God for all of that, right? So that is it for your Sunday morning Power Bible Study. Blessings on your day.